Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is condition of probation prisoners, COP, and how the state assists the counties in funding them. Now, so far we've talked about how we got to the point, what we're trying to accomplish in the legislature, but let's say we are successful this year and you get a statutorily set stream of revenue off of the beer tax. Long term, if both of you agree that that's a desirable way to go, how do we get the rest of it in an ongoing fee, so that or pay structure or tax structure, so that we don't have to keep coming back as counties and asking for that?
Well, tax increases are never popular at the legislature and with the public and taxpayers in general. So you have to be very cautious about how you go proposing something like that. We actually came this route because of a special task force the governor asked us to put together a couple of years ago with all the parties. When I say parties, I'm talking about the courts, the sheriffs, the counties, governor's office, and others. And it was at that task force recommendation that we came up with the source we're talking about. There are others out there that we've looked at, but we'll certainly have to go one step at a time and get this through this session and see how we come out in terms of revenue before we move ahead with whatever the other alternatives might be. I don't know that we're prepared at this point to pinpoint any one of those, Chad.
What are some of the things that you've looked at in the past? I mean, was there anything ever on the table other than the beer tax? Or
we have looked at court fines, for example. We looked at insurance premiums because in some instances there's property crime involved in those people who are sentenced to those facilities. We've looked at just, of course, the most common way to handle it is just to seek a general fund appropriation every year from the legislature out of the state's general fund, which doesn't really require an identification of a specific source. And that's what we'll do this year in conjunction with the bill we're proposing.
And I think that's an important fact. You can provide a nexus between alcohol, drugs, and prison populations. But what's more important in the area is the fact that we have a general fund source, and we have a responsibility. And whether we take it from the beer tax, that might not be the best source when we're finally done. Whether we take it from somewhere, what we need to do is recognize as a state that is a general fund responsibility, which means we've got to prioritize. There's a lot of services in this state right now, and we've been on a downward trend for the last few years. So you need to set your priorities and prioritize those areas that really need the funding. I think jail funding is one of those. That's one of our responsibilities.
Do your constituents kind of argue that paying to keep prisoners isn't very appealing? It doesn't have much. It's not very sexy, so to speak.
Well, it's a lot better than putting them on the streets. When you take some of those people off, and some of these conditions of probation, before they're done with all their hearings and they're in county jails, these are some pretty bad guys. Not all of them, but some of them are some pretty bad guys. I don't want those people back on the street. I want them to be in the system. I want them to be incarcerated, and I want them to stay there during that particular portion of time. So, yeah, I agree. It's a tough thing to pay for. It's just like anything we pay for in government, but it's a lot better than letting them out on the street.
And from the county's budgeting problem, Chad, that really is one of the two alternatives if we're short of revenue from the state. That is to let them go or to raise property tax, because that's the only other source that a county has to generate revenue to pay for conditioned probation prisoners. So I'm sure the public would say, no, we don't want to pay for them, like they do almost anything when you ask about paying taxes. But if you turn the question around and say, would you rather pay a property tax, an increase in your property tax, versus, say, an increase in the beer tax or something like that, then the public would probably have a little more informed choice about how they want to go about paying for these things. So we're trying to do it in a responsible way, and we think this is a good way to go, at least for this session. And then from there on, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and see where we go from.
Well, it'd be nice during the session to kind of get an update on how things are going.
We'd love to do that.
All right. Well, listen, we'll be right back with the county seat. we'll toss out a couple more ideas and just kind of find out what's coming in the legislature, or what things might be going on this session. See if we can get a little sneak preview. We'll be back in just a second.
You see a snapshot and you wish you could make it real. You glance at a calendar and imagine you could step inside. You see adventure and long to join in. In Kane County, Utah, there's nothing to hold you back. Land, water, air, from the Red Rocks to the top of the world. A motorized adventure to the style of the Old West. Experience the true meaning of freedom. Kane County, Utah. Come play in our backyard.
What is play? Is it culture? Is it adventure? Is it...
Ooh, it's a destination.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's correct.
Cedar City and Bryan Head Resort in the heart of Iron County, where outdoor excitement, culture, and the iron industry melts together. Come and forge a new adventure where play is the thing. You haven't forgotten how to play. It's just that you haven't been to the right place yet.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration. SITLA manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of furthering the education of Utah students while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, we distributed more than $22 million to Utah schools last year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.